I love to read and write. I want to be a great American novelist someday.
I'm sure you do. Kids these days, always talking about how they're going to be an author like it's the easiest thing in the world. They decide they love to write, and boom, they've made it. Little do they know what it takes to write a great American novel. Do you want to be a next great American novelist? Do you want your name held in bookshelves across the nation? Do you want to be unforgettable? Alright, of course you do. Well, to begin on this long path you intend to take to write your great American novel, you must first look back at the legacy and life of a true great American author. Giovanni's Room, written by esteemed author James Baldwin, is the impeccable example for those with aspirations to be a great American novelist. I'm sure you feel so lucky to have a life full of food, new clothing, and the latest iPhone, don't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, if you want to be a great American author, you better change these thoughts, and your life better get bad fast. A disturbing upbringing is the key factor in creating the next great American novel. Take James Baldwin for an example. James Baldwin was the first of 9 children. His mother divorced Baldwin's father when he was just a baby, and he never met his true father. His mother moved to Harlem and remarried David Baldwin, a local priest. The family was very poor, and on top of this, James was often abused by his stepfather. Young James Baldwin seemed to have nowhere to escape to, as he was beaten by a group of police officers when he was only 10 years old. For a few years, from the ages of 14 to 17, Baldwin found solace in religion. However, at the age of 17, he began to view Christianity as falsely premised, and later said that being in the pulpit was like being in the theater. I was behind the scenes and knew how the illusion worked. Remember the kids I was talking about earlier? I'm not sure if you noticed, but one special quality this kid had was a passion for writing. After graduating high school, Baldwin decided to put his plans for college on hold so he could work to support his family. He worked at any odd job he could find, most notably and dangerously, he would often lay railroad tracks. Discrimination for being an African American followed him wherever he went. From bars to restaurants to stores, all owners turned him away. After a few months, he was fired from his job at the railroad and struggled to find any job to make ends meet. However, his passion for writing never died, and a year later, he moved from his family to Greenwich Village, known for its popular writers and artists, to focus on writing. He landed fellowships to supplement his expenses. Disgusted with American prejudice and discrimination, Baldwin took one less fellowship and dramatically changed his life by moving to Paris, which also happens to be the location of his great American novel, Giovanni's Room. At this point, you may be asking yourself, how can Giovanni's Room be considered a great American novel if it wasn't even set in America? However, Paris, whether you visited there or not, is known for its beauty, vibrant colors, and liberation. The rivers, the monuments, and even the Eiffel Tower have made the city what it is known as today, the City of Love. One piece of advice, if you've lived in America your entire life, don't write about any other city, say London. The setting will prove unrealistic and the novel will lose credibility. Tap into past experiences when writing your novel. Remember, James Baldwin lived in Paris and struggled as a writer there for many years, so he knows the city for what it is. What makes Giovanni's Room particularly intriguing is that Baldwin unveils the expectations the world has put on Paris by divulging the rougher parts of the city. Juxtaposed to the common belief that Paris was a liberated place full of love, David, the main character, still felt as though he had to hide his love for another man. This takes me to another important quality of a great American novel, the main character. David, also the narrator of the story, is an American man living in Paris, struggling to acquire a place in the world, struggling to make ends meet, and struggling to find himself. The internal suffer the main character must face is vital if a novel is to be even considered a great American novel. In the first chapter of the novel, David says, I think now that if I had had any intimation that the self I was going to find would turn out to be only the same self from which I had spent so much time in flight, I would have stayed at home. David believes that he moves to Paris in an attempt to find himself. However, he is only trying to escape a person he doesn't want to be. Throughout the novel, he struggles but succeeds in revealing the past lies he made himself believe. This is again evident by his admittance, towards the end of the novel, of his denial of his love of Giovanni, another man. While your readers read your novel, you want them to feel strong emotion toward your main character, just as I always felt a sense of sorrow or anger at David. One last characteristic of a great American novel that is necessary is the all-encompassing theme. You, as the writer, need to be sure that every character, every plot twist, every word on the page has some meaning that all resolves itself in the theme. The title of the book, Giovanni's Room, even indicates the theme of entrapment. Even though this room isn't something the reader follows around and studies, it clearly displays just how trapped David felt. However, this theme also displayed itself in an idea not often thought of, classification. David feels a great sense of entrapment due to being known as an American. As he says, "And I resented this, resented being called an American, and resented resenting it, because it seemed to make me nothing more than that, whatever that was. And I resented being called not an American, because it seemed to make me nothing." Although these two examples provide clear imagery, this theme should encourage deeper thought while also providing a chance for the reader to divulge what it means to themselves as well as to the author. So you think you got it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Terrible upbringing, isolation, loneliness, knowledge of setting, depression main character, confusing setting that isn't too confusing, and an unforgettable story.
Sounds great. I think you're ready. Wait. Before you go, there's something I forgot to tell you about. Whenever you write about, you must make sure that the big idea is relevant to the lives of the people, and that for generations to come, people will be able to take something away and learn from it.